Hi everyone, Community Outreach Foreigner here. There's a few reasons why I want to do this video. Mainly, one, to show how hard it is to get help, even after you've asked for help. Just asking can be a big step to take for many. I do have prior experience with this country's psych ward, and it's not particularly good ones. So I haven't actually been in touch with them for a few years, but in this video we're gonna give it another shot, give it an honest try, and I'll demonstrate to you what the process looks like. Sweden is globally known for being a welfare utopia, but it's only when you're forced to actually use those welfare systems that you notice how directly opposite of utopian they are. I feel the people who brag about our social safety nets are the ones who never actually have to use them. What I often see being said rarely reflects mine or many other people's real experiences. So the idea of us as an ideal is a pretty dangerous thing here that needs to be examined. Because as long as we're considered an ideal, there's not really a point in improving things, is there? I want to spread awareness in a constructive way and speak out for many people who can't, because I'm saddened by the many victims of current policies who aren't getting the help we're supposed to be entitled to. I feel for you. Few examples here. My daughter killed herself. Why doesn't anyone care? This is a heartbreaking article about parents who fought for 4 years to get their daughter adequate care, yet she just got bounced around with bureaucracy. Another example, after 6 months of aimless pending between mental care and primary care, he took his own life. Every day in Sweden, a senior citizen kills themselves. Every week in Sweden, a teenager kills themselves. Often, it's due to direct failure from our welfare agencies. For example, after numerous rejections from Försäkringskassan, meaning the insurance board, meaning the Swedish social safety net, a 20-year-old killed themselves because they refused her help, because they made her fight for the right to even get basic treatment and money to pay the rent with. Because Sweden treats sick people like animals. And given the doctors are outright criticizing our mental health ward for an obscene silence culture, I feel like maybe it's time for someone to shine a light to what's going on the inside of the system. Record amounts of Swedes are now on antidepressants, more than ever before, and these pills often increase the risk for suicidal tendencies amongst young people struggling. So maybe there's a need for an organic perspective to all of this. Also, I want to let my fanbase understand why it sometimes goes weeks, even months, without me uploading a new video. It's not laziness, as my work ethic consists of trademark autistic ferocity. I've explained the creation process before. I work very hard. I literally have 1,000 scripts accumulated on my PC. Work ethic is not the problem. My intended upload schedule is once a week, every other video on every other channel. Sometimes you'll notice me violating my own policy though, because my head crashes. I've been struggling with various mental disorders for a little more than 10 years now. That's probably how long I've been physically unable to be happy. I don't know if you've ever looked at brain scans of mentally ill people, but this is what a normal brain looks like. And this is what I can relate to. Overactive electric input ruining my life, having little to do with nonsense like hitting the gym. I've kept that up for months with no difference to my well-being. If your problems are solved just by hitting the gym, then you're probably not a member in the exclusive elite of Club Fucked Up. People like me will experience a beautiful sunny day and think of the sun as an insult. I am not surprised by suicides peaking around spring, because light is a mockful reminder of what you can never have in your own life. I got diagnosed with Asperger's pretty late in life, somewhere in my early 20s, and there's a somewhat unique problem with being one of those high-functioning autists that you hear about. Namely that people don't take you seriously. I've seen this described so many times. When you tell people that you're autistic, some of them will start to speak slower, as if you're retarded. Talk to different autists and you'll often find workplace anecdotes along the lines of, one guy started talking about me in the third person right in front of me. Like, "Oh, John did a good thing today." They somehow manage to be disgustingly condescending and considerate at the same time. But it's fake considerate. If you actually knew anything about the spectrum, you wouldn't act like that. And if you didn't know but wanted to learn, you would ask questions, or just even do a basic Google. You wouldn't assume that someone is retarded just because they don't learn the same way as you do. That's not consideration, that's virtue signaling. And I've noticed something similar with parts of my audience. Whenever I've mentioned it passing by, there's a reaction of almost offended surprise. Just because I'm good at expressing myself, people will automatically assume that I have zero problems in life related to the social, workplace, well-being, etc. Just because you're verbally gifted, they assume you're gifted in all other avenues of life as well. And that pisses me off, primarily for two reasons. Number one, it ignores how much hard work this is, and it sure wouldn't hurt having more patrons. I'm basically doing 4 jobs at once here. I'm a writer, as well as a researching journalist, actor, and video editor. What you are seeing here is my performance. Which brings us to number 2. This is a widespread issue. Even outside myself, I've noticed how language alone will dictate the human experience. Just because you talk smart and act nice, people will think you are. And a lot of politicians exploit that. A lot of rich people exploit that. They get your trust, your confidence, your votes, and then eventually your disappointments. Learning to separate media from person, I think, would collectively improve the way we think about politics and power. It would also teach people not to get bummed out from someone else's Facebook posts whenever they go on a vacation. You do not know someone just because you see their performance. And the value of separating words and actions shines through in the insight that you don't actually know much about anyone. To truly learn, you gotta give it time, not just go off of impressions that you get on impulse. Not engage in witch hunts on Twitter. Now, I'm a high school dropout with more experience of this country's mental ward than its labor market. It's for valid reasons that I don't feel like getting too detailed about, so let me just summarize it by quoting a modern philosopher. Whatever doesn't kill you simply makes you stranger. Because I have a different brain structure and a personality disorder or two, it can be considered more vulnerable, meaning it becomes easier for me to tack on other disorders as well. This is known as comorbidity, and it is quite common. So in addition to the stuff I've told you about, I have depression, compulsive OCD, and generalized anxiety disorder. These are naturally prone side effects to my kind of psyche, but it gets exhausting, since I haven't been able to be happy in 10 years' time. Whenever I do feel happy, there's a layer of anxiety and paranoia over the sensation, because that's what GAD means, chronic anxiety. It messes with you in very insidious ways, and pretty much removes your ability to choose your thoughts. I have the worst possible scenarios constantly pushed into my consciousness at all times, and it's so vivid. It's not a passing idea, never is. It's always an extremely vulgar obsession that's impossible to ignore. I will literally sit for 5 hours, 8 hours, and have something dwelling in my head, always protruding over what I'm experiencing, before it goes away and something else pops up. I need help. A lot of it. Because this isn't something I know how to manage on my own. And so we're gonna start off with the first step, establishing a contact. But before that, remember I upload every other week on every other channel, and make sure to click the notification bell along with all notifications. Unless you do this, YouTube will choose what uploads to notify you about based on cleanliness. not the best system. And make sure to support me on Patreon or Subscribestar if you like my work. Just $1 a month makes a big difference for me, as small, stable sums add up to a nice salary long term. It helps me keep doing this, and I'd also like to recommend to bookmark my website for those who don't know about it. Now let's go get some of that social safety net.
Okej, hur får jag en remiss? Okej, för det jag har är ju flera psykiska störningar, så det är ganska uppenbart för mig att jag behöver någon att prata med på psyk då. Men det är alltså den vägen jag måste gå formellt helt enkelt. Då förstår jag. Tack så mycket, jag ska göra det. Yeah, it's a doctor thing. Like I suspected, it's a doctor thing.
Okay. So you have to call someone else now? You know what that means?
I guess I should record and explain. I mean, in case. So just to summarize what this nice lady just said, formally I have to go to a hospital first and meet a doctor and get an assessment, and then get a formal written note sending me to the loony bin where I can talk to someone. So let's go! Welcome to a fucking machine. This is the future. So I just called them to be told that I can't talk to anyone. They're gonna call me back. So it's a very, it's a very feminine way of dealing with issues in this country. Just making me feel like I have to work for it.
They'll be ready to talk on their own time.
Jag pratade med förra gången så att hon skulle koppla mig direkt till psykosociala teamet oavsett tid. Att jag kunde ringa igen. Gärna.
Okay, so this nice lady informed me that we are still technically in the whole get back to you phase. She's not feeling quite ready yet, but at least now I can look forward to getting a call tomorrow. Turns out it's the psychosocial team I need to get in touch with more specifically, not the general psych ward who I called first, who then told me that I should call the hospital so I can get a doctor to prescribe me to the psych ward, when it really turns out it's the psych department of the public hospital you start with. And forgive me for being an immigrant, but I don't really know the difference here. It seems like an in-between. I don't really know what's in and out. We kind of have a problem with that. So just, I'm not going to pretend to understand this Terry Gilliam level of bureaucracy. That's just, the overall point here is that in socialist Sweden, psych ward call you.
9:15 sa du. Tack så mycket.
This is a disgustingly looking, real looking old man. Good God. Look at that fucking dick. Why is there a dick there? He wrote me a prescription and yeah, that's what I needed. So now I'm basically waiting to get in touch with the psych ward, which I called first of all.
Du har kommit till sjukvården. Vi har sökt dig. Om vi fortfarande behöver få kontakt med dig kommer vi att ringa upp dig igen.
Well, gee, thanks a lot. So I had to travel to an hour for a different city to meet a psychologist that's gonna write me a prescription. So just to sum it up in case Swedish bureaucracy gets confusing, I met the counselor last week who wrote me a prescription, which made me really happy because I thought I was gonna see a shrink. Instead, I end up being sent to the prescription unit to see a shrink that's gonna write me a prescription so that the place I just spent an hour traveling away from will hopefully make an assessment and then give me a shrink. So essentially, this socialist utopia healthcare system works like an exhibit meme.
Yo, dog, I hooked you up with a prescription for a prescription so you can go to the prescription unit and get your prescription, and then maybe we can help you out.
All I did this meeting was repeat everything I said last time, essentially. So we're still stuck in the whole she's gonna get back to me phase. Still waiting for her to figure out her feelings so she can get back to me and decide if I'm worthy enough to be in a relationship. With the mental health care as a tax-paying citizen. Ooh, this really rustled my jimmies, you know. I don't like traveling, so why send a guy who... You know this guy is autistic, so why the fuck would you send him on a trip for no reason?
What the fuck? I finally met a shrink today, and he looks like Mel Brooks. So that's a good sign. I look forward to seeing if we match up chemistry-wise, and I'll keep you posted. So...